Good evening, Africa. It's a madhouse tonight, and boy, oh boy, I can't wait to talk and reflect on the year we had in 2018, in particular in the world of sports. Oh yes, it's the Midweek Express, and we are ready to rock this show tonight. It's go time on the African continent, and do we have a power-packed show? Before we get into it, and I welcome our two guests, it's a warm welcome to Good night. Did I do it right? I'm trying to get the voice you did off air, so hey.
I did not do that voice off air. I'm so excited. Today is such a good show. We've got the dopest guests. It's probably the most excited I've been the entire year of doing hashtag. But remember, this is all about you. We would love to hear from you. So make sure you hit us up on all of our social media platforms. You can catch us on Facebook, on Twitter. Share your pictures with us on Instagram using the hashtag Kwese Sports. And of course, if you want to know anything that's happening on Kwese, we have that awesome website at KweseESPN.com.
Oh, lovely. I can't wait to get into our hot discussions tonight. So let's get right into it. Our guests are no strangers to Kwese Sports or to the hashtag couch. It's a big NBA session in studio with Cyrus Rogers and Shongwe. Guys, welcome to the show. Beep, 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 beep. Beep, 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 beep.
Old school, Arsenio Hall.
Oh, would you actually like to sing? Would you like to sing right now?
No.
Yes.
Would you like to share with us, Cyrus Rogers?
I don't think the viewers want that kind of horrific experience.
Yes, we
Don't
do.
get nervous now.
No, this is not about nerves.
Oh, okay.
See, the other thing is, if I give you a taste, you'll want the album. And the album ain't ready yet.
Hey, Victor Oladipo, eh?
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
All right, guys, lovely to have you in studio. And you know what? Let's start right with this. All right, NBA is in a few months, all right, into the season, and any teams that are standing out above the rest will always be the teams that we talk about. So who's caught your attention, Cyrus?
Look, it's been an incredible start to the season. There's a few things that you see when you watch the NBA. You're almost expecting the regulars to make an appearance at the top.
Yeah.
And that hasn't been the case. The Eastern Conference, the Western Conference, it's been a crazy show. So if you look at the Eastern Conference in particular, and I know Spoo will have fun with this, because the Toronto Raptors really tore up the script.
How?
They got rid of their coach last season, and he won Coach of the Year.
Yes.
Can you imagine that? See, the guy who wins Coach of the Year, imagine Mourinho gets fired after winning the Champions League. Right? Okay, I say
I would
imagine.
love that as a Chelsea fan.
As a Chelsea fan too, I don't know how I'd feel about it.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is, so the Raptors said, but this isn't good enough. Winning in the regular season is just one thing. We're aiming for the top prize. So they do that, they get rid of their best player, but then they just go up a level. They are the best team in the NBA at the moment.
Can they go 50 games, guys? That's the question.
No,
Can they go
I think
50 games?
you can see that. You can see that. And then the Milwaukee Bucks are right behind them. And that's also been another impressive story.
Yeah.
New coach.
Yeah.
And he's got the team purring. And Giannis Antetokounmpo, one of our favorite players, the Nigerian Greek player, he's just been, they call him the Greek freak.
Yes, the Greek freak.
And that is because the man is freakishly long. Like he Euro steps. He makes his way to the basket. He's doing absolutely
insane.
everything.
He's insane.
He really is.
And Shaq called him the Superman. He gave him his new name. Shaq
passed the mantle on.
Shaq says, I never give up my name, but for Giannis, I'm going to give him the name Superman.
Wow.
That's a big accolade. That's a big accolade.
It's a massive accolade.
Yeah.
Because he says that because Giannis is so dominant.
Yeah.
He's the kind of player where you just don't know what to do. So there's an interview with Doc Rivers and the LA Clippers coach, who said, we don't know how to make any plans around this kid. He's just unstoppable.
Wow, that's amazing.
And he does it without a jump shot, by the way.
Yeah.
Wow.
No jump shot, dominant as hell.
Okay, well, talking about dominating Spoo, you know, the regular names like Curry, James, Durant, Harding, all performing really well.
Yeah.
But is it not time for the youngsters to also come and you know, and show us some stuff?
It's definitely time, and the youngsters are stepping up to the plate. I mean, if you look at the NBA right now, Joel Embiid, one of my favorite players, if not my favorite player right now in the NBA, averaging 27 points, 13 assists. He's insane. But I think the biggest surprise for me, pleasant surprise, has been Pascal Siakam.
Wow.
He is insane. This guy was in the G League, which is obviously the NBA affiliate, so it's the lower league.
Development league.
But he's come through and he's in the starting lineup right now. Not just in the starting lineup, but he's dominating and making a big impact in that team. The Raptors had one of the biggest benches last season, arguably, and Pascal Siakam was definitely part of the reason why. And this season he's just taken his game to another level. He scored 26 against the Warriors last week when Kevin Durant poured in 51, but they lost. Pascal Siakam is one to look out for, so watch out for him.
Ooh. Africa, we told you tonight it's going to be a hot one. I mean, the presence of greatness. Some people are singing off air, and others are shooting adverts around there. You know, I must just say, not going to mention any names. But anyway, more to NBA stories. Just on Monday, Chicago Bulls fired coach Fred Hoiberg and promoted associate head coach Jim Boylan in hopes of lifting the team from the bottom of the standings. So Chicago's averaging 103.4 points, 28th in the NBA, and is getting outscored by 9.6 per game. Hoiberg, who had to deal with a veteran roster that didn't fit his style early on, and then injuries to key players starting in training camp, never found his footing in Chicago. Wow, so the franchise have put their faith in Mr. Boylan, and now he's expected to turn around a team that has gone through so much.
Yeah, Cyrus. Absolutely. I mean, Cyrus likes this topic.
Yeah.
But whether you were going to fire Fred now or whether you're going to fire him later, it was going to happen anyway. I think, in 4 seasons, he's only made the playoffs once. He's got a losing record. He didn't quite establish a culture there.
Okay.
And if you look at the big team, look at the Boston Celtics with Brad Stevens.
Yeah.
Without Kyrie Irving, without Gordon Hayward, he established the culture. And once those two big guys, got injuries, Jason Tatum, Terry Rozier, the young guys were able to step up. So the attitude is next man up. And Fred didn't quite establish that with the Bulls. So hopefully Jim is going to do a better job.
But let's be totally honest here, Spoo, and I think this is the other thing that we have to look at. The Chicago Bulls are not the Chicago Bulls of Michael Jordan's stage. Right? They're not even the Chicago Bulls of peak Derrick Rose. They're not even Chicago Bulls of injured Derrick Rose. Right? So what the firing of Fred Hoiberg does is that is basically papering over a lot of big cracks in that franchise. Yeah. There's issues in the back office, in the front office rather, that really need to be taken care of. There's no direction that the Bulls are going in. And you can see that. You can see that.
All right, so Cyrus, a mid-season change, all right. Is this a right call to make? And the franchise have also made it clear that he is becoming the 17th full-time or permanent coach. So as Boo said, culture is important with the Bulls. And indeed, they've brought him in to kind of bring that stability and grow from here.
How do you change the culture by keeping the same guy? He was an assistant under this very same coach. So you're not going to change the culture, right? And I think this is where the NBA is different from a lot of different leagues, in the sense that what happens is you then promote a guy and say, okay, fine, you have the keys to the Ferrari, go for it. Let's see what you do. What he then has to do is work with the GM and the president to try and mold this into a team. Yeah. He's got some young talent there. You know, Lauri Markkanen is a fantastic player.
Chris Dunn,
Chris Dunn, But they've always struggled with injuries. So you look at some of the injuries. Zach LaVine has had his problems.
Yes.
Jim Boylan is unfortunately on it's a sticky wicket.
Doesn't he inherit
which way does it go?
Team?
He does. And so, but the thing is...
But then why does the franchise show faith in him then?
No, let's look at it this way.
Why?
Right? You look at the way the team runs. Who, in terms of the coaching talent, could they actually pull across to the Bulls at this stage? Considering that the Bulls don't seem to know what they want to be.
And the other thing is they don't, for me, look, you've got a young roster. The vision for the Bulls this season wasn't to make the playoffs.
Exactly.
It wasn't to be successful from that standpoint. What they wanted to do was grow their players. They needed an alpha dog, a legit bona fide scorer, and I think Zach LaVine is coming through now. He's a candidate for most improved player the first quarter of the season, but you just don't have the players. You just don't have the talent. You have young guys.
So then what can you do if you don't have the players then?
It's
because
tough.
the crop of your talent is injured and one is, injured for the whole season.
Yeah. It's a waiting game, and that's what the NBA is. So, you might play 82 games in the regular season, but the reality is that they don't have draft picks that they can trade away. They don't have star players that they can use as anchors to try and bring big players in. So you've got to take the route that some of these other franchises, like the Sacramento Kings, have taken. Take the L's. You're going to lose. Put your faith in the coach. So here's where there seems to be an issue. The issue is they didn't see any sort of development from the players that they have currently with Fred Hoiberg. Wow. That's why he had to go. And some coaches just don't work out.
So it's a scapegoat, though, Cyrus. I mean, if you're saying that, the whole culture needs to change, that means that they're using the coach as a scapegoat. And no matter how many times they change that coach, until the entire franchise sort of looks at themselves, then, nothing's going to change.
And the players have to take responsibility, Cyrus. At the end of the day, I do think that it's not just a coach thing. It's not just a culture thing. It's a combination of everything. And I think the players themselves have to take some form of responsibility and make sure that they deliver and they perform to the highest level.
of the times, Boo, you are recovering from injury and you're expected week in, week out to be statting up, you know, that stat sheet. So, yes, there is a sense of responsibility from players, but just managing also that kind of pressure, I think,
it's tough.
you know, it has to be a reality that we can't ignore.
Yeah, you can't ignore it. But to Boo's point, right? And this is also where I think that the coach is at fault. The coach doesn't make you take a bad shot.
Sure.
Right? But he does draw up the play that puts you in a bad position. And so when you watch how the Bulls are playing, you can often see that they seem rudderless. That is a coaching issue. Now, if you are just missing your shots, that's a player issue.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So at what point do you then try and remodel all of these guys? Because they have had players come and go throughout that franchise.
Yes.
And those guys have not necessarily lived up to the expectations. Chris Dunn in particular was somebody that they thought, okay, fine, finally we have somebody we can actually just sort of hand the keys of the kingdom to and see what he does. And it hasn't panned out. And this is unfortunately the way the NBA is. They will get... Lauri Markkanen has become one of the best stars that they never really planned on getting almost immediately. It was a draft night decision.
But then they take Nikola Mirotic, who was one of the biggest contributors, and they trade him away.
Well,
what happened
when you're fighting,
there was a fight at practice between Nikola Mirotic, the former player, and a guy called Bobby Portis. And some guy almost lost his face, basically.
Well,
so
Bobby Portis
they had to trade one away.
His jaw.
But Nikola Mirotic was one of the biggest contributors in that team, and they let him go. So now you're stuck with a bunch of young guys who are taking so long to develop. It's dire right now.
So if you're Jim Boylan, what is your strategy going forward?
Well, I'd look at Nick Nurse. There's a guy by the name of Nick Nurse, new head coach of the Toronto Raptors, rookie head coach. Yes, he's got Kawhi. Yes, he's got Kyle Lowry as an all-star. But I think he's established his voice, his authority, and what he wants from his players early on. Okay. And that is very, very important, especially for young players.
Okay.
If you're coaching young players, you have to control your locker room quite early so that you develop your players
That's true.
quite quickly as well.
I think the thing that, to add to that, Boylan can only do so much, right? Because one of the other pressures comes from the fans. And what the fans want to see is people actually trying. And it doesn't seem as if the Bulls are trying to win. Now, when you have a situation like that, you then have to start getting the guys going. And so I think what they'll do is that they'll say, okay, fine, youngsters, if you lose, that's fine, but show some effort. Make sure you're making big-time plays. Let's see some stuff. Nobody's going to judge you for trying, you know? They'll judge you if you don't. And that's what Boylan has to do, is to try and bring out that kind of level of fight from these guys. And the other thing is, you got to do that.
We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Let's move on to one of Smooth's favorites, Joel Embiid. Now, he jokes about almost anything, any situation, but here's something about the Philadelphia 76ers center that's no laughing matter. His candidacy for NBA's Most Valuable Player award. Now, the NBA chugs along, fueled by trends and cycles, and Embiid, despite a mountain of stats and sublime consistency throughout the first quarter of his campaign, might not be the most fashionable of choices. LeBron James doesn't just have the standing reputation as the best player in basketball, but also the narrative of a switch to Hollywood and the task of lifting an underwhelming cast of associates to spur his claim for the accolade. Now, let us keep it 100. Spoo, I know you love him.
Yes.
Can Joel Embiid win MVP?
Yes, yes,
Yes?
and yes. Why?
Why?
27 points, 13 rebounds, just under 4 assists. And the biggest surprise and what impresses me the most about him is that he's averaging 30% from the three-point line as a big man. So that shows you versatility. Right? I know Cyrus likes Giannis a lot, so he's going to counter-argue, right? He's going to counter-argue, but the thing about Joel Embiid is the versatility for me, and the fact that he played a lot of games last season, coming off injuries the first 2 years. He played, and now the injury thing is no longer in question. Now they ask GMs, who would you build around? What player would you build around? And Joel's name. I know it was Giannis, but Joel is right up there.
He's right up there.
The numbers for me are impressive. His leadership is coming through, but the versatility for a big man such as him to carry a team is impressive. So he can win MVP.
But I mean, Spoo, I think it's a good story simply because Joel Embiid has been painted in that light that he's always injured and we'll never really see him reach his prime. So what's your take, Cyrus, on Giannis?
I'm going to finish up on Joel Embiid first.
Okay.
Because I love Joel Embiid. I absolutely love him.
Not as much as
his
Giannis.
Story, no. And this is the thing, right? Because Joel Embiid and Giannis Giannis have taken separate paths to get to the NBA. Joel Embiid has actually come through African development, through the Basketball Without Borders program.
Yes.
You know, he's one of these success stories.
Yes.
He went in as a weedy kid. You should see the pictures of him. I mean, you know, you start thinking, well, he was a few meals behind. But he's managed to catch up.
Yeah, real quick.
And this is the other thing.
American pizza this side. Pretty much.
But he's also doing it in the gym.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think Joel Embiid can win the MVP. Will he? I doubt it. Just and Sbu will answer this, right? Who was the last big man, just off the top of your head, who won MVP?
It's been a long time.
And that's my point.
It's been a long time
because it's really about scoring. James Harden, Russell Westbrook's triple-double season, Steph Curry, you know, unanimous MVPs.
Yeah.
You look at it in terms of how people love to see these kind of guys.
Yeah.
Now, Giannis gives you all of those things. Giannis is the only player in the NBA to have ever been in the top 20 in the top 5 statistical categories: scoring, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks. In the NBA, not just in his team.
No, he's very good.
Complete package.
Doesn't have a jump shot.
He doesn't.
But he's,
he doesn't have to. And that's the other thing.
You're such a Mamba fan. You're such a Mamba fan.
Hey, I'm an African fan. Africa's time is now. Joel Embiid.
Giannis is kind of African
Wow.
too.
Kinda
But
doesn't.
You know,
Wow.
I mean, I'm using kinda here as in very
Yeah,
loose.
now I need something.
Heck,
No, but I like Giannis
But
too.
it should be
I
either
really
one
like
of
it.
them.
Yes, sir.
It's just that I think we're too early in the season to really call it, because the Steph Curry he was on a tear before he got injured.
Yeah.
And I think he's just going to get slot back into that groove, and we're going to forget that we even started having these other guys in the mix, because this could be Steph Curry's 3rd MVP season.
Oh, lovely. All right. So I know that this is definitely keeping your eyes glued to the telescreens and your ears wide open to these discussions. The Questified Fire and my lovely panel tonight will continue bringing you an exciting, entertaining discussion, of course, of the NBA. See you now. Ciao. Okay, so the amount of head skill and strength you need to have to keep your body, all right, through your weight, is that the right way to say it? For that long, guys, takes some skill, surely.
That is chiropractic.
Don't try it at home, though.
Yeah.
Can you try it here?
Do not try it. No.
Go Spoo. Go Spoo. No?
Okay, all right. All right, so we continue with NBA. The Los Angeles Lakers legend Kobe Bryant continues to be involved with the franchise he spent 20 seasons with. The future Hall of Famer stated that James running the show won't really move the needle for the Lakers' chances at a championship in the long run, but will only help keep the team afloat as they figuring things out. The Lakers kicked off their 2018-19 campaign with a 2-5 record, but have since won 12 of their last 16 outings. LeBron James has taken over as a primary playmaker during these last few stretches, and this has translated into more wins for the purple and gold, who are now sitting at 5th in the Western Conference. Spoo, the floor is yours.
Lakers all the way. Hollywood.
Yeah.
This was a good move for LeBron. I do not particularly think that this was a championship move. I don't think he went there thinking, I'm going to win something. I'm going to win a ring. I mean, he's got young guys, you know? That's the first thing. You've got Alonzo Ball, who's in his 2nd year. You've got a Brandon Ingram, who's in his 3rd year. You've got a veteran in Rajon Rondo. You've got JaVale McGee coming from the Warriors. So this is a young squad that has a lot to figure out. And LeBron has to do so much heavy lifting in that team. And Magic Johnson actually the other day had a conversation with Luke Walton and the other coaching staff that they probably need to bring LeBron's minutes down.
Wow.
But
is that to save him for
because you don't want
playoff spot?
what ended up happening in Cleveland, if you look at last season, the past couple of seasons where they went to the finals, 4 straight times?
Yeah.
They overworked the guy, and by the time the finals came, he was tired. And the problem is the supporting cast wasn't able to get him over the hump. But it was a good move.
Oh, but he's a workaholic.
Yeah, he is. It was a good move from a basketball standpoint, though. It's going to take a while for my Lakers to get it going like that.
I'm so happy that Boo said that because
I'm being honest.
LeBron took quite a while to gel with the young players. Had a frustrating start to the season, but now eventually the W's are coming. James is a winner. How's he going to make it work?
Let's look at, firstly, it was great to see Sbu come back to planet Earth when it comes to the Lakers. Because this guy's love for the purple and gold
is insane.
It's nuts. But I think the thing is, and
See the jabs I take from this guy.
We've spoken about this before. You know, he's been on my podcast, the Post-Up podcast.
Yeah.
And you know, his love for the Lakers just extends. But this move from LeBron is a long-term move. It's not going to be one where the Lakers are going to win championships immediately. And if you look at Kobe's quote, he says it moves the needle because the Lakers were nowhere close to the playoffs.
Yes.
Now they're even being spoken of as being a finals kind of candidate. It's not going to happen this season. I doubt it will happen next season, depending on what happens in the offseason.
I can imagine that headline. Are you sure James is not going to be in the finals this season?
How is he going to do it? And this is the other thing.
Difficult.
There's only so much LeBron James can do.
Yeah.
Don't forget, this man is in his early 30s. As an athlete, he is probably in the prime of his career in terms of how his body is. But it's deteriorating more than it's getting better. And that's why Magic Johnson is like, look, his minutes, guys, his minutes. Because like an old car, you got to look at the odometer at some point and be like, oh, we're putting the mileage on this thing. And at some point, you don't want LeBron to blow a gasket. You're putting the entire franchise rests on his back. So the likes of Kyle Kuzma got to step up, Josh Hart, the youngsters there, and Luke Walton. I wouldn't be surprised if they changed the coach at the end of the season, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah.
And LeBron might have a hand in that.
Let's not accuse him of it.
But he's very influential.
Yeah,
he's very, very influential, and we can leave it at that.
Yeah.
But guys, surely he wants that championship ring. He wants to see that championship
He's done it.
on
He's
his
done it all.
finger.
This is a guy that has 4 regular season MVPs. He really doesn't need any more.
He doesn't need
He's got 3 championships, 3 finals MVP. He really doesn't need any more.
guys-
all he needs now is that Hollywood Grammy, either a Grammy or an Oscar. Or an Oscar.
No.
Kobe Bryant won one.
Has Jordan ever got an Oscar?
No, but
and you know I'm going with this
Bryant has
question.
one.
And you know
Kobe's
I'm
got
going with
one.
this
Yeah.
question.
Yes.
And this is the thing, the greatest of all time conversation, all of that stuff. Look, the thing about LeBron is, if he's chasing Jordan, he knows that he's not going to win another 3 championships. He just knows
But
it.
at his prime, at 30 years old, he's got 2 seasons left. At least 2
He's
seasons
a
left.
few years after that.
It's mogul time now.
Okay.
He's diversifying, and
Yeah.
that's
Yes.
why the move to Los Angeles made a lot of sense.
Yes.
Because it's a Spring Hill, his entertainment company, and all of the other business interests that he has. It's easier for him to take care of those when he's in Los Angeles, as opposed to when he's trying to run his business in Cleveland.
Exactly. And from a culture standpoint, you look at his show Uninterrupted, you look at his other ventures. They're really, really jumping off now that he's in LA. So that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, okay, so we're talking about this. Basically, we spoke about Serena Williams being a brand. So he's focusing on brand James.
Absolutely.
Now, how important, because it's hand in hand, Hollywood and basketball, like you said, Hollywood, we here. How important is the branding for the basketball players?
It's massively important. But think of it this way, and this is what there's a reason why you find so many celebrities engaged in relationships with basketball players in the US at the moment. Because basketball has become the prime sport. It's no longer about football players, right?
Yeah.
Gridiron was really where it was at. And in essence, O.J. Simpson was indicative of that. Look at how everybody had, they had to be around stars like him, Michael Vick, and I hate to bring up the discredited ones.
Yeah.
But in essence, that's how it was.
Yeah.
But basketball has now shot up in terms of its relevance in US culture.
Yes.
So you've got like a Ben Simmons with one of the Jenners. I'm not sure
Blake
which one.
Griffin and whatever.
Exactly.
But it bridges the gap, Si. It bridges the gap between music, also fashion and entertainment, and the basketball thing as well. You look at Drake and LeBron James's relationship. Drake, in one of his lines, says, they want to be us and we want to be them. So it's almost synonymous. It's almost synonymous, and it comes together very
talk
nice.
about wet like book, in terms of like the references in rap culture, talking about how shots are so good, in terms of how everything has got to be about how people play. And LeBron James has become that cultural icon. People are talking about him in their music the way they would Jordan in
Absolutely.
But even MVP, isn't it? Obviously you guys are talking about stats, but obviously the Hollywood factor plays a thing.
No, absolutely. The thing is, with the MVP thing, there's no set criteria for that, right? It's a perception versus stats thing.
Yes.
If you look at Russell Westbrook and James Harden the other year, Russell Westbrook was averaging a triple-double, whereas James Harden had the better team, better record, and he had really, really good stats.
And a really, really
But-
good beard.
That's what I'm saying.
See, so that's marketability. Exactly.
Sorry.
So what ended up happening was Russell Westbrook won the MVP because of the numbers, because of the perception that if you get a
historical nature of what he did.
Yeah.
triple-double MVP. Whereas with James Harden, he had a better record, better team, but he actually didn't win it. The beard didn't save him there. They say beard saves lives. I don't know, Arthur. If you get in trouble, I don't know what's going to happen with you and him. So
Wow.
It definitely saved lives. I'm just telling you, this is where it's at. Warm in winter, cool in summer.
There you go. There you
you
go.
want to start a song? while
Like,
you're at it?
yeah.
You wanna
Are you like
give us a
waiting
little
for
live?
Cyrus?
No.
Are
The
you
album
sure?
will be out, I'm sure.
Are you sure?
Just,
Are you sure?
out of the
Come,
airwaves.
Cyrus.
Come on, Cyrus,
Come on,
sing us
Cyrus,
a
come on,
song.
Cyrus, come on, Cyrus.
Shoot
Hey.
Oh gosh, guys, do you know they call this peer pressure? Right?
Come on, Cyrus, we're getting you hyped up.
I'll wait for you.
Do the Oladipo.
Good.
Oh gosh, if I
Oladipo
do,
side.
you see, the problem is, just lost my voice. I've got to look after the voice.
There goes our
The
viewers.
voice.
Like, really? Oh, love it. Guys, we've literally run out of time. I can't believe it. Like, this has been the best show in the whole world, all right? And on the African continent. I don't even know how to say goodbye, guys. That's how fun it is.
It's been real.
To Cyrus and Zbu, thank you so much for your contribution on the show. And what a year it's been in NBA. Kandai, oh my goodness. I've got to say goodbye to you too.
You have to say goodbye, but we're still here. We can continue this. Let's go out and
Yeah.
continue this conversation. It's dope.
Yeah.
It's not over.
Fantastic. Africa, you know where to get these wonderful people on social media. You know where to get in touch as the fire continues to remain with you. Let the Quesified energy keep vibrating. Ciao.
You simply